you got to realize that whatever you're doing, you're competing with somebody. What is it that gives you an advantage over your competition? Whatever you're good at, try to be great at it. And if you're great at it, good things will happen.
Maverick Podcast.
I'm far from average. That's why I had to come sit down and chop it up with DJ Maverick. They know my name from coast to coast and even in Dallas. I use my talent when I'm faced with a challenge. Gratitude strength is my magnet. Close your eyes and imagine. If you can see it in your mind, then you can have it.
Maverick Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Maverick. Today we have another super episode. We have the owner of MENT Apparel and also Beer Hop, the one and only John Knight. Welcome to the podcast.
What is up, man? Thanks for having me.
We have so much to talk about, but before we do, for the 1% of the people out there that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's John Knight from Tulsa. Lived in Oklahoma City for about as long. Graphic designer, love music, love sports, love fashion, love color, and strive to do that in my professional life, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what's the quote? Game recognizes game, right?
Yeah.
So when I was checking out your stuff, it looks like merch. It looks like fashion. It doesn't look like the stereotypical, like I'm just going to put a logo on a shirt type thing. Right?
Yeah, correct.
So is that kind of like you're into fashion? You're kind of like mindful of that?
I am, man. I've always grown up, with like really colorful sort of like, I don't know, stuff that not everyone else is wearing,
Yeah.
And then I kind of just brought it into my adulthood. And what I've found with the things that I like is I don't really see them anywhere, man. I love color, like I love fun. I love all that sort of stuff. And that's usually on things that are for kids and for women for the most part.
Or we left it behind in the 90s or
I
something.
know,
I don't know
man.
what the heck happened, right?
I know.
Yeah.
So I just like to have fun, and the things that I like to bring to other people that are my age that can also wear it.
Yeah, I also saw a lot of play on the mint, right? Like there was like a super mint and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's up with mint?
So mint, it all came from a name. Well, basically, it stemmed from it's a suffix for like a lot of words, right?
Yeah.
So back in the day when I first started this company, a lot of the designs that I would make and print all ended with the suffix mint. So, for example, like we had a hot pink tank top for women, and it was called Pigment, and it had like a giant piggy bank, and
really,
yeah, so it's like a play on words. And there was a Moment shirt that was green and had like a old school like push lawnmower.
Okay.
So all the things were derived from like words that had the suffix mint, and that's where mint came from.
Wow.
So that's how
it's funny
it
how
started.
it happens.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of the Rolling Stones. Do you know the story behind the Rolling Stones? So the way that they got their name, I think early on, Brian from the Rolling Stones, he was like calling back for advertisement. And the journalist or whatever, he was like, well, what's the band's name? And he was like, oh, crap, I don't have a name. So he was like looking around. There happened to be a vinyl record on the ground, and one of the tracks was Rolling Stone. And he's like, we're the Rolling Stones.
Really?
Yeah.
And,
and now if you think like that name is like legendary, right? You're like Rolling Stones. There must be like some deep meaning or whatever. And it's just like, it was like a record on the ground.
Wow, dude, what a cool story.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, right?
That
but you
is
never
really
would have
cool.
thought, because Rolling Stones, I mean, that's like one of the most iconic names, if you ask me, right?
Yeah,
Still
like
around to this day.
You probably a lot of people think that it has some sort of like, deep like meaning or whatever, and it's just really just on the tongue.
Yeah, because that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
Because when you're like, it's just like a suffix. I was like thinking like meant to be or something like that. Like I was looking for a deeper meaning there, but sometimes it just happens and it works, right?
That's true, man. I'm not a very deep person, so like really it's on the surface for me. So I was like, that's a cool idea, and then so we just named the company MENT, and like a few years down the road, we kind of got away from that because it was the designs and the things that we could do with it were a little limiting. So we kind of got away from that, but I hope to be able to bring it back and like sort of like almost like a tribute or like for like a 15-year or like a 20-year or something like that, sort of bring back some of those OGs and then create some new ones based on that sort of concept.
Yeah, that's super in right now. I geek out. I don't know if you follow like any of the fashion YouTube channels, but I'm always geeking out like what people are wearing in New York or whatever like that. I don't know if you watch any of that stuff.
A little bit, yeah,
so,
a little bit.
Whenever I saw your designs and stuff like that, like that's kind of what it reminded me of. Like you're building a brand. So I don't know if you're headed in that direction or you're already there, but is that something that you want to do, like its own clothing line sort of thing, or what?
I really would. I think it kind of just depends. Like I guess I'm an entrepreneur. I just kind of like find things and I do something, and like I do want to do that. It's just kind of it depends on where life takes me, I suppose. But yeah, like ideally, I'd love to be able to have like, you know, some, I don't know, some like nice like jackets and like some cool like button ups and stuff like that are like custom that we manufacture in house, you know, and like sell online and all that sort of stuff. But baby steps, and we'll see. You know, I think for us right now, it's mainly like local production and sort of embellishment. We can do a lot of things, but there's some limitations without manufacturing. So hopefully down the road
I think you're already there. I mean, when I was checking out your stuff, I was like, man, this is awesome. You know, and with corporate, usually like the stuff is like real stuffy, right? Like they're scared to try anything new, and you're, you know, having some wordplay, you're playing with colors, you're doing all this stuff, right?
Yeah, man. We'll see, man. Like I said, day by day, you know, where life takes me, but I think that's sort of the ultimate goal for MENT to be. It's a clothing brand, but for it to be more than just sort of like local embellished, you know, product, you know, like high-end fashion things that, you know, you're seeing at different places all around the world. You know, that'd be really, really dope.
That's awesome. Rumor has it is that you're a soccer star too. Tell me about that.
I don't know about a soccer star. No, I grew up playing. That was my sport. I played a lot of sports, but that was the one that I sort of stuck with. Still love it. Kind of hung up the boots though. I just at my age, I don't want to tear an ACL. But
and all the running, I used to like play in high school. I was like midfield, a wing, right? And then it's like you're running back and forth the entire time, right?
Dude.
It's crazy.
Yeah, man. I love soccer, man. It's you know, I watch it all the time on TV. You know, I followed the energy before they left, and hopefully now they're coming back. But I just love it, man. I really, really, really do. I was pretty good in my heyday, but you know, here I am. I didn't go pro or anything. So
yeah. What are your thoughts on soccer? Because I mean, we've been playing it in the U.S. forever.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, like it's always like on the cusp, right? Like of like taking off. Right now, I guess to Miami, right, with Messi, like they're doing super good. But like, what's it going to take for like the U.S. to be like, okay, soccer is cool too, right?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things, and we are heading in that direction.
Yeah.
I think the biggest, I don't know, sort of the biggest hindrance for soccer in the United States is there are too many other professional sports in this country that pay better.
True.
And I think that's what it comes down to. You know, when you're like football, basketball, I mean, you can't compete with those paydays, even baseball too.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've made some strides, but I think what's really, really important for the youth to know is like now we're in a period where like you don't have to play in the United States.
Right.
You can grow up and train here, and then when you get of age, you can move to like England or Spain or Brazil or whatever.
Especially with social media, right?
Yes.
I feel like now we're all neighbors, right? So if you're a rock star here in the U.S., you start putting your highlight reels or whatever, and all of a sudden you get picked up from TikTok or whatever. I think it's totally doable, right?
Dude, absolutely, man. So I don't know. I think you know, I think for soccer in the United States, I think we'll get there. I think it's gonna be another couple more decades though before we can really start competing.
So was that the goal to go pro soccer, or what was your goal?
When I was young, yeah. I mean, of course, I wanted to go play. I didn't really, you know, at the time, like the MLS wasn't even here.
Yeah.
And then it just started, and so like I didn't really have any plan. But yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I want to go pro or whatever. So I played. I mean, dude, I played on like 3 teams, like throughout the year. I played a whole lot. We traveled all around the country and all the world, and I was very fortunate. We had a lot of success, man. We were a good team, and I was a pretty good player. And but I think it just at the end of the day, I think I realized that there was really not a whole lot of future for me.
Yeah.
So I think I chose the art direction instead.
Okay. You were good at drawing at first, or graphic design. What was it?
I've always been a creative guy, and so I've always gravitated to art. And even in the music, like I was a musician, so like I just really gravitated to the arts. And my dad was a graphic designer, and so I sort of grew up in that realm.
Were you in a band? Did you have a graphic band?
Oh yeah, man. I had a couple. Yeah, I was a drummer.
Okay,
still am technically, but
what type of music?
You know, just alternative rock.
Nice.
We just kind of like dabbled in all sorts of stuff. I mean, we were kind of a little bit experimental, but also a little commercial, but it was all sort of rock and roll, just sort of.
Any recordings out there if I go searching?
Yeah. Okay. So, man, it's back in the day, but if you look up Somewhat Lucky, we were a band from Tulsa.
Nice.
We have, I think, a couple albums out there, and then some videos just randomly around. But but that was that. Yeah, I mean, I was always sort of like an artsy guy, and when I went to college, I was like, well, I don't know what I wanted to do, so I went to school for film video because I really loved watching movies, and I thought, hey, being a director or something like that would be really cool because I didn't want to be in front of camera. I always wanted to be behind, producing and all that sort of stuff. So I did that through college, and it was fun and all that sort of stuff, and got a job at a local television station out of college, and I just kind of realized it wasn't for me, man.
Really?
Yeah. Like once I got into the television world, like professionally, I was like, yeah, this is not.
And you would think that's like everybody's dream, right?
Yeah.
Like you made it to TV, you made it, right? Like, what did you enjoy? Like, what was it about it?
Man, I think I really like the people and all that sort of stuff. You hear that from a lot of people at different jobs, but I just don't. Personally, I didn't like how, because I was in the production part of it, and I just didn't like how production is sort of like an afterthought.
Okay.
And all that sort of stuff, and like the anchors and everything, or like the crown jewel,
Yeah.
When
I get it.
Without production, I mean, without people behind the scenes, none of this happens.
Right.
So it was just sort of a little bit of that sort of kind of like I don't know, atmosphere. And that, and then I just realized that I didn't love pointing a camera at people and just sitting there and then moving to the next shot. It wasn't really enjoyable for me.
Were you also into editing and all that behind the scenes too?
I loved editing.
Love that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Editing was my in college, that was what I gravitated to.
Okay.
And honestly, my best skill set when it comes to that sort of stuff. So I loved editing. I didn't get to do that at Channel 9, which is where I was.
Okay.
Great company, just not for me. But I did a little bit of, I didn't get to do editing at Channel 9, and I kind of just was like, man, like, what am I going to do? I don't really want to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of fell back to graphic design because that's what I knew. And, I already had a little bit of stuff that I just played with on my own. So I had a small portfolio.
You mentioned that your family kind of did some of that, or?
Yeah. My dad, man, my dad was a great designer in Tulsa.
Really?
He opened up his own firm with a couple other guys, and I got to grow up seeing like what they do. So he owned his own business.
That's awesome.
And I was like, I think at the time I didn't really realize that that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just thought it was kind of cool. I'm like, hey, like he's got a cat in here. Like, how cool is that? Like, at your office, just, little kid stuff. But as I got older, I was like, man, like,
you don't realize like that's like the cool stuff, like making your own hours, playing the music you want, like having a cat, like you said, like
exactly, man.
To me, that's almost worth more than the paycheck. Right?
100%. I could not agree more, man. We all need to be like comfortable, and we all want to be, be able to do the things we want to do. But for me personally, like being happy and enjoying what I'm doing is like worth more than any monetary value. Yeah. So.
And you were like, I don't want to do what my dad does. Forget that.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do something cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went and found a job at a company in Norman called Top of the World.
Okay.
And, they do, or at the time, they did a lot of headwear for colleges all around the country. And they did some like corporate stuff too. But they were a big player. And I didn't really realize what I was getting into. But that was like a big stepping stone for me as a person because I learned more about graphic design and learned to sort of train or kind of fine tune my skill. But on the other side, I learned a lot about like, manufacturing and how to like source fabrics and work with the factories to be able to do these sort of things.
The secret sauce, right?
Secret sauce, man. And so that was, I thought was really, really cool. And I was like, man, like this is just awesome. And so anyway, years go by and like, we're just cranking out hats and everything. And like any other job, man, there was like some politics and stuff like that.
You were also on the creative side. Like to me, like, listening to this, I would like, if someone told me, hey, be creative, and you have to like be creative, like on the dot, or like, hey, make a design for this. Right? To me, like I have to be inspired. I have to have some music.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Dude, I've always found that easy.
Okay.
I think, I don't really know, but my thought is, I mentioned earlier that I'm not a very deep person. Yeah. Like for instance, like when I'm listening to a song, I don't hear everything the artist is singing about. I don't
like the beat and the vibe.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Okay. So like I'm very surface level, and I think the reason that I'm able to sort of just turn it on and design something is because I don't bog myself down and like overthinking it.
This guy, he was involved with like extreme sports, right? And they're always like Red Bull. is like the sponsor,
Yeah.
right? A lot of the athletes, like they have to take pictures with the Red Bull, stuff like that. And a lot of the guys were like, well, I drink water too. I want to look cool in the picture too, right? So he's like, okay, let's brand it.
Yeah.
Let's make it look cool. And then it's like Liquid Death.
Yeah.
It's just water in a can.
I know.
Right? And they got like huge endorsements. They're in concerts, all these venues just because of the packaging.
It's amazing, man. These guys killed it. I didn't know that story, but like it really is. It's not sparkling. It's nothing. It's just literally water.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that like, and I'm not saying it's not good product because it is, but like, it just goes to show that like the way you put something together can really make or break it.
Yeah.
You
And
know what I
even
mean?
the tone, like they're like, I don't know if you follow them on social media, but they're always joyful and like playing around, messing with people. Like they were doing a collab where they're like, okay, we're gonna do a casket,
Yeah.
and we're gonna brand it like Liquid Death, and it's gonna keep you cool and all this stuff. Like they just like mess with people, and like you just see people in the comments going
Yeah.
crazy. But that's kind of like their branding. Like we're just gonna mess with people. We're gonna have fun.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. They hit a home run, dude.
Yeah.
Because like it's awesome. And I don't know. It's really cool, man. So I think like for me, it's just I don't overthink it. Now there are some things I think about ahead of time and stuff like that. So I don't not do that. But it's when I'm just throwing something, I just sort of just go. I can't really explain it. It's very easy for me to just come up with stuff because it's like I'm always looking at things, whether it's through my phone or just out in the world, And so like I take mental pictures or I take actual pictures and stuff like that. And I don't know. It's I love designing, man. It's fun. And I love that people, let me do that for them. I think that's super dope.
That's cool. So you learned the secret sauce.
Yeah,
you
man.
learned to be creative on the spot, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna take the jump and do my own thing. Like, what led you to that?
Great question. I think like, so, I think I was just kind of getting fed up with like a lot of the political stuff that was going on. Like, there were things I got passed over on some things, and anyway, but like I was just getting frustrated, and I was like, me and my wife were like, I got to do something,
Yeah.
So I was like applying for some other jobs and wasn't getting them. So I was like, man, I'm still here, like, but so I went to a wedding in Tulsa, and I went to this like local shop before the wedding, and it was like a t-shirt shop, still around, Boomtown Tees, shout out.
Hey, shout out to them.
Yeah. And so I went in, just kind of checked out some stuff, and then I met, I think the owner at the time.
Okay.
And they kind of walked me in the back and showed me their four color press, and and I was like, just kind of like clicked, man. I was like, dude, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can still be at top of the world. I still can be frustrated, but I can go home and then I can do this thing. You know what I mean?
So the thought first was like, I'm going to do both.
Yeah. Moonlight.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to moonlight with Mint. And so I started doing that, and, found a local printer, because I wasn't going to be able to do that and design and my full-time job. So I did that, and then we just started popping up at different festivals. Norman Music Fest, several others around OKC. We even traveled to Tulsa and Dallas.
Okay.
Did some pop-ups. And
So you're physically going to the
Yeah.
events with like merch, like just for the event, or your own merch?
yeah, our own merch. Yeah.
Okay.
So, like the Pigment, the Moment that I was telling you about,
Yeah,
we'd
yeah.
bring those, and we'd pop up our tent, and we'd be there, and we'd just sell them, man. And
So the Pigment, all that,
Yeah.
that wasn't like a real business you were doing like merch for. That was just like something you were doing.
yeah, that was
Oh,
that was Mint, right? So
Okay.
like that was our own stuff, but it was only online and whenever I popped up, because
I thought that was like your
Yeah.
first client, and there was
Oh,
like, that's
no,
what I
no.
was
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
And I was
I
like,
gotcha.
what are the chances that all these clients are like, you suffix mint everywhere? But it's like this. So you were playing that even there, and you
Yeah.
play with like the word mint.
Yeah, so that's how it all started, man. Like it was like, we came up with this idea to call the company MENT Apparel, and then
Yeah.
the designs would be based on, the suffix mint. And so we would design those, pop up, and sell them. And we did that for several years. And we just gained a following. It's got more followers. And then, people started knowing us. And then, it started moving a little bit more fast.
Yeah.
But still, at the same time, I was at the top of the world. And then, dude, really the turning point, and I'm wearing them because I knew I was going to tell this story.
Okay, cool.
But so I went to apply. One of the jobs that I applied at was Anthem Brewing back in the day. And I didn't get the job because it was for like sales and marketing, and I had no sales experience, and they hired someone with sales, which is totally cool. Right move.
Yeah.
But I ended up meeting one of the guys that was the president of Anthem. We kind of got along. And so I ended up emailing him, I don't even remember, like a day or 2 days later after the interview, and just saying thank you. And I was like, I also wanted to show you this, and I created like a whole deck.
No way.
Yeah, for Anthem, and what I think craft beer merch should look like. Because at the time, a lot of it was just, and there's nothing wrong with it, but a lot of it was just black t-shirts, white ink, and some very, very basic, right? It had no character or anything to it. So I sent him this deck, and I got an email back almost immediately, and he loved it.
That's an important message, because most people would be like, hey, forget those guys. They told me I wasn't good enough for that spot. They don't know, whatever. Like, I'm not going to communicate. I'm just going to move on. And you're like, okay, let me send them this deck.
Yeah,
that's
man.
pretty cool.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I don't give up. I'll tell you that much. That comes from my sports background, I suppose. But yeah, dude, he loved it, and he was like, "Can you come in for a meeting?" And so we sat down, and I sort of like talked to him about why I sent him these things and what I thought they should do. And dude, they took my advice, and we started doing like a quarterly rollout of so we would keep them supplied with like logo tees.
Okay.
But every quarter we would roll out very limited,
like a drop.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, dude, and it would be based on the seasons.
Okay.
And I would come there to the brewery, and I would set up, and they'd buy them from the brewery, but I was there if anyone wanted to ask me questions and talk to me and all that sort of stuff. Dude, we did that for years.
Dude, I respect the hustle. That reminds me like hip hop, like selling mixtapes out of the trunk or something.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. That's what really got the wheels started turning, because at that point, once we started rolling stuff out for Anthem, not only did people see it there, but like people at Anthem started talking to other people in the industry, right? So like then, before I know it, I got another brewery asking me, and then another, and then another. And within a couple years, I was supplying half the breweries in the city.
Wow! So you were like niche into like just breweries at first.
Yeah, at first, it was kind of like I didn't really. That wasn't like a long-term like plan, but it just happened that way because I love craft beer myself.
Okay.
And I drink it all the time, and so like it just kind of like worked. And when I go out of town, I go to these breweries, and I always look at the merch, because that's a
you're like,
it's an interest of mine.
Another logo on a t-shirt.
Yeah,
Come
man.
on, right?
Yeah. So anyway, that dude, that's what really did it, man. And so Anthem, I'm always forever grateful for them, to open that door for me. And it just kind of kept going from there.
That's cool, because like I said, most people would have been like, hey, they said no, maybe they'd be like down, like sort of second guessing themselves. Maybe I'm not qualified, right?
Right.
Now all of a sudden, the guy that they said no to, you're almost like in a consultant role. You get to name your price. You're like, hey, this is what I think your branding should be. This is the messaging. Yeah. This is what, right? How did you do that? How did you feel about that?
At first I was a little intimidated, because I didn't really know much about business. I was kind of just like, this was before I was even full time. I was I still had a day job, and I just kind of was learning how I was just learning on the fly, man. And I was listening to like entrepreneurial like podcasts, and like listening to like audiobooks about like Steve Jobs.
Which ones?
Yeah, Steve Jobs, dude. I listened to Phil Knight's, Elon's. I listened to the guy, I forget his name, the guy that created Patagonia. Just a bunch of them.
Okay.
And then the podcast that I was listening to was like How I Built This by Guy Raz.
I love that.
Yeah. So I was just kind of learning that way, and then by doing, and I've kind of figured it out, man. I'm a confident person at heart, so like I think they knew that.
So the courage was in the bag, and you're like, if I can get my foot in the door, I can sell it.
Yeah. I think like if I'm sitting there telling them that, hey, this is what you should charge, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
They just kind of like let me do it, because they're like, well, I don't know. So, I gotta trust him. He knows what he's doing, not me.
Yeah. That's interesting. So it just got so big that you had to open up a physical spot, or what?
So not quite then, but I did get to the point to where I had to decide whether I stay at my day job or do it full time. And
how did you decide that? It was just like crazy hours, or was the money like equal, or what? So,
we did it a little bit different than I think some others. My wife, I love her to death. She's super supportive. Always has been. She even helps. She still does like the books for the business, because she's an accountant. She's a CPA. Cool. But our sort of decision together, she was the one telling me that I need to leave my job and go do this full time. But she was like, I want to do it responsibly.
Yeah.
So we made the decision to do that, but work at the house. full time for a while to kind of see, where things are going. And at this point, this was 2017.
So you were in the garage. You had everything set up in the garage, or what?
So I had just a desk in the house, and this is also a very important point. When I first started the business, I was subcontracting the production out.
Oh, okay.
So I found a printer that I really liked, and that's who I was working with early on. Well, when I went full time, we had to make the decision whether to do this myself or to continue that path. And we did the numbers, and we decided to keep subcontracting it out. So I have a really good relationship with several contractors around town.
Cool.
And I bring them a lot of business, and they work really well with me because I have a whole system in place, and we work great. But that's the way we do it, man.
Yeah.
So like I do everything. I'm a one-person show.
No way.
I do everything except
to this day.
To this day.
Wow.
Except for the production.
Okay.
But I oversee it, and I set everything up, and I do all that sort of stuff. But we have a good QC process, but yeah, it's just me. So when we moved in the house, all I needed was the desk and Wi-Fi.
I was gonna think maybe it was just technology, right? Because back in the day, it was probably like screen print.
Yeah.
And now, what is it, like DTG? Is that what
it's both?
Called?
It's both. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So it's probably like the equipment, everything. It's probably smaller, more sleek, right?
It is on the DTG, the digital side. It for sure is. It's it's the wave of the future. Like I think that's here in 10 years, we're gonna see equipment that we've never seen before. I mean, that's what it's going to. But the screen printing side, those auto presses that you've seen before are still what is basically holding.
Well, we're
it down.
talking like I know what I'm talking, like DTG, whatever.
Yeah.
That's direct to garment.
It is. Yep.
Yeah. So I think what are the benefits of that? Like you can do multiple colors versus like a screen print. Like what's the benefit?
That's a great question, man. I kind of coach my customers because they don't know either, and so there's pros and cons to both. So I say like screen printing. The advantage there is you can do more at one time, which lessens the cost per unit.
Okay.
And so you can do them pretty fast. So it's going to be a cheaper cost. Digital is great because you don't as opposed to screen printing where you have to create a screen for every color. You don't have to do that. I mean, it's basically like feeding it through like your own printer that you have at your house, just a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. The downside is you can only do one at a time if you have the majority of the machines that are out there.
Okay.
So that's the downside, and it costs a little bit more.
More like complex designs, or
I wouldn't
not
say
necessarily.
No, I wouldn't say the complexity really matters. I think it just depends on the job. So like if you're saying like, hey, I only need 5 shirts, like we're not going to screen print those. We're going to do them digital. But like if you're saying you need 1,000 shirts and you need them in a week, there's no way we're doing those digital. So I think it just kind of depends on the job. Okay. I personally love digital because I just think there are so many like boundaries that like it can sort of push, that I don't think screen printing really can.
You could probably do like cooler fades or something. Right?
Yeah, and just like locations, like you can print in the armpit with digital if you really wanted to.
Yeah, interesting.
You could with screen printing, it's just a little bit harder. So anyway, there are pros and cons to both.
And durability, both are the same, you think, or what?
It depends. I would say depends on what inks you're buying, but I would say typically screen print's probably going to have a little bit more of a shelf life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So you always been into fashion. That's one of the skills that I wish I had, like to be able to dress cool. Shout out to Dustin, right? Because that dude, like, he makes it look like effortless. He always shows up like just like a sweater or whatever, some shoes. He's a big shoe guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a big shoe guy.
I am, man. Me and him are sneakerheads.
Okay.
Yep.
So is that like something that you also like kind of like grew up with, like fashion, stuff like that, or what?
Yeah, a little bit, man. It's funny. Like I'm getting older. My parents are sending me pictures from like I was a kid, that I hadn't seen in years or never seen.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this at the time, but like apparently I was always wearing some like cool kicks.
No way.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Remember like which ones?
Yeah, so like I was really into Reebok at the time. So when the pumps came out, I was rocking those.
I wanted those and I could never afford them as a kid. I bought them probably like last year because they like re-released them and I got a pair finally. But as a kid, I could never afford them.
Dude, I know. Well, my parents wouldn't buy them for me. I got them for Christmas from my grandmother who was. Was spoiling their grandkids and whatnot. So I got lucky. But, dude, I was always rocking shoes. And I didn't realize it, though, until I saw these pictures. I was like, man, I guess I've always been doing this. But
so
I love
we got
shoes.
the Reeboks. You did the Jordans, too, or what?
Dude, I never really wore Nike. I was like, I was doing the Reeboks. I was doing the Pumas. Okay. I was doing the BK, or the British Knights.
Yeah. Okay.
What else, dude? There are some brands that aren't around anymore.
Was it one like... Laser Gear or something like that.
Dude.
Or like, I'm trying to think some of those brands that, for sure, British Knights and of course Converse, right? Like,
yeah, Converse.
They've been around forever.
Yeah. No, man, I don't know. I just
Elise, wasn't that like one of the brands back in the day? Elise, something like that. I'm trying to think some of those brands.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember them all. I mean, that was so long ago, but I love how some of them like making a comeback. You know, Reebok's really making a comeback. But I don't know. I never really had Nikes. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Maybe I couldn't afford them. I don't remember. That was a long time ago.
But you always like knew like, hey, this outfit goes with this or whatever. Or
you know, dude. Okay, so I wanna chime in on what you said. You said you wish you would have had it or whatever.
That's a cool skill to have if you ask me, because like when you walk into a room, whatever you have on is saying something.
Yeah.
Right?
No. Yeah. It's a visual representation of you.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I think like it goes back to like I think me not being very like deep and not really thinking about it. I do the same thing with clothes.
No
man.
way.
Dude. I don't. You know, unless I'm going to a wedding, I do not think about what I'm gonna put on. I don't even like until I get in the closet. I have no clue what I'm doing.
You sound like Adam Sandler. Have you seen Adam Sandler? The way he dresses, people always give him crap, and he's like, "Hey, I don't care. Like I've got these shoes that are clean or whatever."
I just, you know, here's what I think. Here's what I think fashion is.
Mm-hmm.
I think fashion is your own confidence in what you're wearing.
Okay.
So I think like, and that's not necessarily 100% true, but I think that if you are confident in what you're wearing, it's gonna show.
Yeah.
And that's really what fashion's about, right? Because it's like someone's wearing something and you're like, man, God, I wish I could do that. Well,
Right. I
mean, why can't you?
Everybody's wearing like baggy jeans. All of a sudden, Doc Martens. Like, do you follow the trends or what?
I do a little bit. My attire is sort of a hodgepodge of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like I wouldn't say I fit in anything specifically.
Yeah.
But yes, 100%, dude. The 90s are in. Everything's baggy as hell. You know, like Gerbeau, remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
dude.
Jenkos,
man. They're all back, dude.
Yeah.
And I love it. You know, I'm a child of the 90s, man. Like that was sort of my adolescence. So like I love it. But you know, big oversized prints, you know, baggy shirts.
Yeah.
That's what's in, man. That's what's in.
So tell me about Beer Hop.
It's a passion project. So it supports itself financially, so it's okay, but it's not anything that's like gangbusters.
Yeah.
It's not paying the bills. But it's a part of my heart, man. So it's like basically how it worked was years ago, before, and for people that are listening that didn't know, like the laws changed in Oklahoma back in, I think it was 2017, that like basically changed everything for the state.
Okay.
Before that, you could open a brewery, but you would go in and you could only order like, I think it's like 10 or 12 ounces. And then you'd have to go.
Really?
And there was no to go. I mean, it was basically just very like, I don't know, archaic.
What was the difference between that and like going to a bar? Like where's that distinction, I guess?
I don't know. It was within the laws of Oklahoma and how they were written. So they had to rewrite some stuff, and they got a lot of lobbyists, and they finally did it. And when this changed, it changed everything for breweries. Mm-hmm. So now you could open a brewery, you could sell beer in your tap room, you could sell as much as you want. You could sell to-go beer, you could do tours, you could have events. You could like a brewery is now. Like, you know, we couldn't do that before.
Yeah, because I think now you almost have to build a community around it.
Yeah.
Like people are looking like, hey, this is my favorite brewery. I go there to hang out, and they also do like drops, right? Like special, like
100%,
beer, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So like when all this changed, we like really wanted to come up with something that could help people know more about what other breweries are doing or how to get there and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So we basically created a physical booklet that we would have at every single brewery in the metro area, and you would open it up, and it would have a map. It would have where all the breweries are. It would have all the breweries and then like their hours, everything. If if you could bring dogs, if they sold anything non-alcoholic, all these things, the FAQs that people want to know.
Okay.
Can you bring kids? Blah blah blah. So we did that, and we had, to offset some of the costs, we would sell ads. We would do like some fun little games in there, like crossword and stuff like that. And anyway, we'd stack them in there, and people.
Is it like a magazine,
Yeah.
or almost like a tour guide sort of thing?
Yeah,
or?
it's kind of like it's a mini magazine, is what it was. In its heyday, I think it got up to 20 pages.
Okay.
And it was pretty cool, man. And it caught on really fast. People loved it. And And the breweries were telling me that like, hey, we need to, can you restock us? Like they were running out because people were just picking them up and all that sort of stuff. It was really, really cool, man. And so, we sort of dealt with that for a couple years and sort of the challenges that sort of like took on, logistically.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, for sure. But deep down, I always wanted something digital, and a buddy of mine, Josh Delosier, shout out Josh, approached me a couple years back, and he sent me an email. I was like, hey, can we meet up? I want to show you something or whatever. And I didn't know who he was. So we met up, and he was like, he's like, have you ever wanted to develop an app? I was like, absolutely. And he just turned his phone around, and he had already built it.
Oh, he pulled the John Knight.
Yeah, dude.
He's like, let me tell you about this.
Dude, he totally rocked it, man.
Oh, wow.
What a stud.
So it was already built out.
Yeah, he built it out, and he based it on the magazine. So he just picked up a magazine, and he just took all the information and put it in there.
Yeah.
To be able to show me. And I was just blown away. I mean, it was unbelievable. And so we ended up partnering up on this whole thing, and he's still with me now, and he's the one that does all the development and manages the app and everything.
Okay.
And I basically do all the sales and all the more of the physical legwork and stuff like that for Beer Hop. And we just sort of tag team it, man. And we both love beer, and so it like works out really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why an app versus a website or something like that?
I don't know. I think, I know there's a million apps, but it is very easy to be able to access it if people want it. It's free to download. There's no cost. And we just wanted something that anyone can get and at any time. And because everyone has a computer in their pocket now. Yeah. So, it's basically like, this is a no-brainer. We wanted a digital footprint for this concept. So
it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking, being an entrepreneur, it's like, maybe you could do like gift cards, or maybe you could highlight like, hey, this drop is about to come out or whatever. Like you could do a lot of cool things, even like pictures, publishing inside of the app, right?
Dude, it's a lot of fun, man. We do some fun stuff. We do trivia. We do we have like a check-in function for like a passport sort of thing. People love to be able to check off where they go.
That's awesome.
There's all sorts of stuff. There's a beer dog in there where like you can take a picture of your dog and upload it. Anyway, it's a lot of fun, and we're approaching 25,000 users at this point.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah,
we were talking before we started recording. I was trying to get you on the schedule, and every day you're like, I'm on a podcast, and I thought you were a guest, right? But it sounds like you have a podcast of your own, right?
We do, man. Yeah. It's nice to be on this side, by the way. Yeah. But yeah, we started. Right? Yeah, it is. We started it a year and a half ago. And we just released our 42nd episode. We air the episodes every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And it's a lot of fun, man. I mean, it's called the Beer Hop Podcast, and it's me, Josh, who you mentioned, my good friend John. Yeah. And it's us three, and then a guest or two, or however many people show up, and we just kind of talk and shoot the shit, man. It's a lot of fun. And when we started it, it was going to be strictly for breweries. And then, I think not that far into it, we kind of realized that, hey, that we're going to limit ourselves a little bit by doing that. So we sort of opened it up, and, now we're having people on just like in Oklahoma City that are shaking and moving, or just doing some cool things or have something cool to say. So it's pretty cool. And then, the plan is to early 2025 is we're going to get up to Tulsa and film a bunch up there too.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess some of the Tulsa breweries and some of those people up there.
Yeah. I'd say the breweries all over kind of blew up in Oklahoma. I guess Colorado too. Like, what are some of the hot spots you think?
In Oklahoma?
Or just in the U.S.?
Oh, in the U.S. Yeah, absolutely. The ones that really stand out are like Denver, San Diego.
Yeah.
Seattle's another good one. Let me think. Asheville, North Carolina.
Probably Austin, right?
Austin's pretty good. Yeah. Really, Oklahoma per capita has a decent amount of breweries for the amount of people that we have in the state.
Yeah.
And I know I'm biased, but we have some of the best beer in the country, man. We really, really do. But yeah, there's a bunch of others, man. I would say like Grand Rapids, Michigan's probably another one.
Okay.
In that area, but yeah, there's a handful, but for sure Denver. Colorado is, I feel like a lot of people just think of Colorado when they think of craft beer.
Right.
Because there's a ton.
Where did that love for beer come about? Like you were just kind of into beer all along, or what?
No, I was in college, and I remember I didn't have any money. And we would always, like, when we buy beer, we get like Stones or Beast or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't remember why. I went to a liquor store with a friend, and he was kind of saying, "Hey, we should try some of this like nicer beer, or import is what we were calling it."
Yeah.
And it was like $6.99 for 6-pack. I was like, dude, that's
was it like a Modelo or a Coors?
It was the one I bought. He ended up talking me into it. I bought a Flying Dog, which is that's the name of the brewery, and I bought their Amber Ale, and that was my very first craft beer, and I didn't know what to expect.
Okay.
I mean, at that point I'd had just trashy lake beer.
Yeah.
But dude, I had that thing, and I wish I would have recorded my face, because I feel like that was like a turning point for me. I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Like anyway, so that was also a problem too, because I wanted it all the time, but I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So I would only splurge on like certain occasions, like my birthday or something like that. But that's where it started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So it sounds like all along you're kind of combining your passions and turning it into a venture, right? Most people would be like, don't ever do what you love and turn it into a job, because then you're going to hate it, right? Yeah. What would be your advice to that?
Dude, that's a very good way to put it. That's kind of what I've done. I don't know. I wouldn't discourage it. No, because I think as long as you have a good balance of what you're doing and your personal life, and whether your personal life can also be that as well. Yeah. But I think just having a good balance between work and home, go for it, man. Okay. If you do have a good balance, and you're able to get away from work and make home and work, I'd say go for it, man. I mean, I think it makes for a stronger company for me. It makes I love what I do, and I wake up every day, grateful that I get to do what I do. Mm-hmm. So I would not discourage it. I know I've heard that before.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of artists growing up with them that tried, and then they ended up stopping because they realized that, oh, this is business, and now I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, because if you're an artist, you're like, I want to do my art. Yeah. I don't want to do the books. I don't want to do taxes, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You see it a lot in music, though. I mean, like, maybe some people don't like start doing photography when they like photography, but I mean, you mentioned earlier about the cassette tapes, trying to hustle. Like, I mean, music. I mean, you wouldn't tell a musician not to do something they love, right?
True.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends maybe on the person, but I wouldn't discourage it.
Okay.
Do what you love.
What about taking that jump, right? Like you're like, hey, I'm going all in. We're going to do MENT. What would be your advice to that? Because most people, they're afraid to take that jump, right?
Yeah, it's scary, right? I think I would tell them to think about it, but I would say jump, man.
Do it.
I would say jump. I think like there's a really good quote by Steve Harvey, and I'm not going to remember it at the time, but the premise is like, you never know unless you jump.
True.
And like, if it's something you're really, really passionate about, something you really, really want to do, I think failing, knowing that you've done it, tried, is way better than never trying. I think you'll end up regretting that in life. So I would say jump. Of course, it depends on the scenario.
Right.
I'm not saying go spend $1 million just because you want to open a bar.
Yeah.
Think about it.
There wasn't a moment where you're like, hey, maybe I have to go back. Like MENT kind of just like took off, or what?
Yeah, the way I am, man, as soon as I got a taste of what it was like to work by myself, I even told my wife this. I was like, I'm never going back. I'm never going to work for anyone ever again. I will do whatever I have to do to keep this business afloat. And so my drive, and passion, keep it alive and keep it thriving. And and if I had to, I would. If I had to go work for someone else, I would. I'm not gonna go homeless, but yeah, man, it's a great feeling, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Even my wife, who's great at what she does, she wouldn't want to take that jump. She'd rather have the security of a paycheck every week and all that sort of stuff. So it depends on who you are. I think, some people want to jump, some people don't. But I would say jump if you're one of those jumping people.
Yeah. Did people around you, friends, did they believe in the dream like at first, or were they like, hey, I don't know, man, like Mint sounds cool or whatever, but I don't know.
I wasn't interested in anyone's opinion.
Yeah.
I didn't even really tell my family when we did it, when we made that decision. Yeah.
Okay.
I told them a little bit later because I knew what people would say. People would tell me, oh, you should think about this.
Right.
And I didn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of me being naive and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't want to hear it. So I went with that. I believed in myself.
Yeah.
I believed in.
Yeah, that's an important point because most people would be like, hey, you've got a 401k.
Yeah.
You've got retirement. You got benefits. You got insurance. Right. What are you doing? Right. That's an important point.
I know,
so
man.
You're like, hey, I don't want any doubt.
Yeah.
It's all me, right?
It's all me, man. And, it was a little bit, I should be clear, it's a little bit easier for me to jump off when I have a significant other that has a full-time job and 401k and all that sort of stuff.
But still, I mean, there's a lot of risk in that, right?
And I'm just happy, that my wife let me do it,
Yeah.
I mean, she could have been like, are you crazy? But she was supportive the whole way through, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I always like to ask the guests, if I pull up your playlist, who am I going to find on your playlist?
Oh my God.
So
dude.
maybe tell me it's a safe space.
Yeah.
Nobody's watching, so you can tell me Britney Spears or whatever.
Oh, dude. Same with my clothing. I don't care what people think. I'm very much like, I don't care at all. But dude, I'm all over the place. But I gotta say, man, like some of my favorite music is like trance and progressive. I love that stuff. I love house. So like Eric Pritz, Dead Mouse, those are some of my favorite artists.
Okay.
And then like on the rock side, like I love The Midnight. I love Floor, who's out of like Northwest US. Dude, I love all this like synthwave stuff that's like coming back. Like it's like the 80s, but it's like new.
Do you like the lo-fi stuff? Like that's like kind of the wave too, like hip hop but lo-fi.
Dude, right? I do, man. And I love hip hop too, especially like 80s and 90s hip hop.
Okay.
I love Tribe Called Quest, dude. I love the Beastie Boys. They're on my list like all the time. Always. Awesome. So I'm like all over the place. But yeah, man, I would say like if you can give me like Dead Mouse, Beastie Boys, and like maybe I'll throw in like a Third Eye Blind from like the 90s.
Oh, really?
You give me those, like I'm good, dude. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You kind of ride the wave, depending. Yeah.
Yeah, just whenever,
awesome.
whatever, man. Yeah.
Do you use music to sort of get creative or get into that space too?
Dude, 100%, man. So I always have music on. My dad, when he would get creative, he would put on like movies. That was his thing.
Okay.
But movies just distract me because I want to end up watching it or whatever.
Like just random movies or always
just,
like the same movie?
He wouldn't even like watch it. It was just like background
noise. Okay.
But I couldn't do that. So like I'm always music, man. And like I think it just kind of depends on like the day. Like if it's a Monday and it's like rainy, I'm gonna put on something a little bit more chill.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like a Friday and it's like nice out, like dude, I'm gonna put on some hip hop, maybe some house. But yeah, I just have that music in the background and it fuels me. Okay. I gotta have it. Silence is too awkward.
I have to have a soundtrack. So early morning or in the gym or whatever, like it just changes.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's sure.
Cool. So you're in the Paseo. One of the things that happens in Paseo is the art walk, right?
Yeah.
How do you involve yourself into that?
Well, that's really fun, man. When we moved in, when we opened the doors in November of 2022, so almost 2 years ago now, that was the first time I'd had a brick and mortar.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, so what goes on around here? How can we do this, or how can we do things to get involved in what's already happening? And because I live in the area, like I knew that the art walk was a big thing in the Paseo, and so we are like a little bit off of the Paseo. We call it the edge of Paseo. Yeah. And I got with some of the businesses around there, and we sort of like created our own sort of district unofficially.
Okay.
And like I busted out a logo for them. We have an Instagram and all that sort of stuff. And we sort of, so now the reason I'm saying that is because now with like First Fridays, we have this like almost like this little independent district on the outskirts of Paseo.
So you just call it Edge Paseo?
Edge of Paseo. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really, really cool. So I work specifically with like a lot of the businesses that are already there. Yeah. Especially in hospitality and retail. And then we just kind of like keep our doors open, and we'll do like there's a really cool market that happens every Friday in like the cooler months. So like it starts actually tomorrow. I know people won't hear this, but but yeah, a little market outside of it, and a bunch of pop-up vendors and all that sort of stuff, and it's just really, really cool. So the first Friday is an important area in our area, or important day in our area, and we just stay open late, and Dustin and I, shout out Dustin, we'll on a good night we'll have like DJs, and like we'll have
I need to swing by at no one.
Yeah, man, for sure. But yeah, and we'll do like the little like sales here and there and different things like that. So it's a fun time. So definitely check out a First Friday in the Paseo if you're ever in the area.
I would say that's an interesting move from your part, because most people would have been like, hey, you just need a warehouse, you just need some space, go find wherever the lease is the cheapest, right? But you were like, I want to be in the Paseo. This is where stuff is happening, right? Was that like a strategic move?
It was 100%. It was. So like when we opened, we actually renovated the front of the building to make it more retail centric. Okay. So when you walk into our space, you walk into our storefront, and then in the back is where the studio office is and all that. But we created it, Dustin and I did, so to showcase our products. So I'm clothing, headwear, and accessories, and then Dustin's paintings. And just like me, all of this stuff's really colorful. And so we did it straight gallery style. So it's like white walls, white everything. And then the product pops off that wall.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys are both like colorful.
Yeah.
Like that's cool.
We have a good synergy there, man. Yeah. It's we complement each other, not just not as people, but just our products complement one another.
Okay.
So it's really, really cool. So yeah, we when we created this, I was like, because Dustin and I were talking about like, hey, if we're together, wouldn't it be cool to be in an arts district? So being in the Paseo was definitely a consideration with all of this, because they're already sort of the OGs for like art in Oklahoma City. So we were just kind of like, playing off of that.
Yeah, especially nowadays, I think any brand needs to build the community around themselves, right? So I think that's an awesome opportunity. You open up the doors and you're like, hey, come check us out. And then people are going to vibe with you, and they're like, hey, I want some of that merch. I want to rock Mint. Right?
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, it's a total vibe. And when you come, you'll check it out, man. It's a cool space. People love it. And so like part of my job is to try to get people there. So like, First Fridays, having events, doing little things like that, having live music, stuff like that, getting people in there, because when people get in there, they all love like the feeling the space gives them. They'll all love it. It's colorful, it's fun, it's different. And so, yeah, man, it's like, it's a whole vibe. And when your community loves your vibe, then they're going to support your cause.
Yeah. You also like sneak in some of that beer or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit, man. I'm always having a craft beer on First Fridays and stuff like that. And we, but I work a lot with the breweries from a merchandise standpoint, but we also, I do a lot of the labels around town too. So yeah, I'm normally getting some like some complimentary beer, and stuff like that from the friends that we do labels with and stuff like that. Yeah, so we're always stocked.
Yeah. Would you say you're mainly B2B or B2C or a mix of both? Like,
it's a good question, man. I'm glad you asked that. So we have sort of we've set ourselves up to be sort of have like two streams of revenue, right? So we're B2C and B2B.
Okay.
The biggest footprint of the company is B2B. The majority of what we do is we work with other customers to outfit them and get them cool stuff and all that sort of stuff so they can sell it to their customers. The smaller footprint, the one that I really want to really expand on, is the B2C. So that's where the storefront comes in play, and like spreading the Mint brand. We can create a custom like outfit or whatever for like a brewery.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like that's their clothing, not ours. We created it, we helped them get it, but it's not ours. Whereas at our storefront, everything's ours. And so we're really trying to grow that sort of B2C business.
Okay. What is something unexpected that you've learned from having a podcast?
Oh, wow. Well, I would say not being prepared.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I think early on, I didn't know what I was doing. There was three of us with a mic, and, there inevitably there was some awkward moments, where like, oh, crap, we need to say someone say something, So I think like one thing I learned really early on is to try to be as prepared as I can.
Okay.
That way, if we fall into a situation like that, I've got something to pull from or get us out of it or whatever like that. So That's probably the most. And the other thing I learned is that I guess I can tolerate my voice.
Okay. We were talking about that.
Yeah, I know, man. When I first started listening to myself on those podcasts, those early episodes, I just cringy.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't bother me anymore.
Okay.
We're 42 in. It's like, it's kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I would think probably being a musician, I don't know, were you on the mic, being in a band and stuff like that?
Backup vocals, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're probably comfortable with being on the mic then.
I am, but as a drummer, I was always in the background.
Okay.
So like I told you about, like with the cameras and everything at like Channel 9, like I like to be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I don't want to be out in front. I want to be behind. And so it's kind of the way I've operated my life. But when I did this podcast, even though there isn't a video aspect to it yet, I didn't want to be, you know what I mean? I was like, it was nervous for me to be on that mic and do all that because it just wasn't comfortable to me.
Got it.
Yeah.
And because you're not busy enough, it sounds like you've got another initiative you're about to launch too. Is that right?
Yeah, this is a fun one. I feel like it's kind of a long time coming. So essentially, I have partnered up with a buddy from Chicago. He's really well connected. He works with a lot of professional sports teams all around the country. Great guy. And we sort of connected over just through social media. And then he learned about MENT because he was new to Oklahoma because he moved from Chicago. And so he was trying to get to know people, and we ended up meeting up, and we got along, and we kind of hung out a few times, and then one day he's like, we should really try to pitch some merch to some of these teams. And I'm like,
okay.
Okay, all right, yes, that sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially what we've done is we've created a third sort of venture outside of MENT because he's not a part of MENT. And that's fine, but we wanted to make it to where it was just him and I. So we created a separate sort of little venture, and it's called Urban Fabric, URBN FBRC. And it's sort of another passion thing for him and I. We both love sports. And so we've kind of gone through, how we're going to do this for a little while. And then fast forward to last January, this January of 2024, we pitched to the Thunder, and we got in.
No way.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
So we went through the whole process. It was some meetings back and forth. We had to do some tweaks, eliminations, give them pricing, and they had to like go through this whole, buying, I guess, for them on their end. And they ended up buying some stuff from us, and it went directly in Paycom, like almost immediately, right before the playoffs started.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So that was kind of surreal.
So you're responsible for like the shirts they lay out and stuff like that? Or?
No, that's a different company.
Okay.
But we're selling, streetwear, high-end streetwear to the Thunder to fill a void, in my opinion. I love going in all these like teams, team stores and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of it is, it's produced by these giant companies. Yeah. That, especially for like a smaller market like Oklahoma City, don't give two thoughts to. Right. And so it's a lot of this stuff that like I feel like could be much better. Yeah, it's just probably just like athletic, typical jersey or whatever. Yeah, right? Just like some cool streetwear stuff. We're talking about like baggy, like Prince and like, hip hop, like some cool stuff that like people my age and younger want to wear. Mm-hmm. So when we got in, I learned a lot because, it's a different animal working with them. But it's been awesome. They've been very, very great to us. And, as we speak right now, we're literally going through another round for this upcoming season, much, much bigger this time. Wow. Congrats. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And so we'll see what happens. But sort of the goal is if it goes well, depending on what happens with the Thunder, is to pitch other teams around the country using his connections. Wow. Yeah. That's a great start. I mean, brand new initiative, and you're already working with the Thunder. So that's incredible. Yeah, and it's all being handled, like the production, the design, and everything is all being handled technically through MENT. Okay. But it's just called something else. Awesome. Yeah. So before we sign off, I want to give you the platform here. Where can people find you? Social media, website, plug it all in. Yeah, man. So I'll start with MENT Apparel. You can find us pretty much on everything, all at MENT Apparel. But I'll say Facebook, Threads, Instagram, X, and TikTok. You can find us there. With Beer Hop, kind of the same, just not as many. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.
Okay.
And then check out our websites, man. It's MENT Apparel is just mentapparel.com. And then Beer Hop is beerhopok.com. And you can get all the information for both of those there. And then if you're wanting to know more about Urban Fabric, you can check us out on Instagram. We don't have a website up yet. We're very new, and we're waiting to see what happens with the Thunder before we sort of make some other decisions.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for your time.
Dude, thank you, man.
Enjoyed the conversation. It was really cool.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
We could geek out about any of that. You forgot to plug in the band, by the way.
Oh.
Where can people find the band?
Well, if they can find it, it's probably on YouTube and probably some Spotify and iTunes.
Okay.
Yeah, all the major platforms. But
all right,
dude, and you'll have to come on our podcast.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The super talented John Knight on the Maverick Podcast. In dreams, we trust.